guys, welcome back to my channel. So today it is Wedding Wednesday, and as some of you will know, I'm actually a full-time wedding planner. It's what I do sort of day to day in my career, and I have been a wedding planner for over 10 years now, and as you can imagine, during that time I have worked with hundreds of couples from all over the world, and I probably haven't seen it all, but I've seen most of it. So today what I'm going to do in preparation for Christmas, because I know there will be a huge amount of people getting engaged this festive period, and it's also a great time for couples while they're off and have some family and friends around them to do some great wedding plans. So what I'm going to share with you today is 10 really realistic and honest pieces of wedding planning advice from me as a wedding planner. So the first thing I want to say to you is that as a couple planning a wedding, one of the important things that you need to do, and there are many of them, but one of the important things is that you either need to grow a backbone or show a backbone. And what I mean by that is weddings bring with them a huge amount of opinions from a whole host of different people, not least your closest family and friends. And often they are very strong opinions. And you may think they are the way that you have to go or need to go because of a whole host of different reasons, even if you don't want to go in that direction. The second reason you need to grow a backbone is to actually make decisions, even among yourself or for yourself, and to be able to tell your wedding suppliers or your planner or your family what those decisions are. So you really do need to be, if you want to have the wedding that you want, and not to make exceptions or go in a direction that you don't want to go in, you really do need to grow a backbone. And I see that with my couples a huge amount, is that they have great difficulties in telling people, either their family or their actual wedding suppliers who are asking them what they want, what it is that they want. So grow a backbone, decide what you want, and tell people. And then obviously if you have to make adjustments because of budget, expectations, sizes, or whatever it might be, then you readjust. But at least grow the backbone to begin with. The second thing that I want to advise or say is that asking for a discount from a wedding supplier or a vendor or a venue or whomever, it's okay, but don't ever expect a discount. So most of the wedding suppliers and venues that I know are all very hardworking, and they provide great quality products and services, and they are reasonably or well priced in their market. And remember, these people, they're in business to make a living and a profit. Let's be real about that. People are in business to make a profit and a living. And so by you saying, well, you know, give me a discount, they still have to pay all their bills. They can't ring up their mortgage provider or their electricity provider and say, well, listen, this bride wants a 10% discount, or she wants €500 off, or she wants €100 off. Can you give me €100 off my mortgage this month? So it's okay to ask for a discount, but you should never expect to receive one. If the product or service is priced outside what you have to spend or are prepared to spend, then you possibly have to readjust the service being provided or your expectations, or go elsewhere. So just to sort of bear that in mind. The next thing I'm going to say is wedding favours. If you're on a budget or undecided on them, they are the first thing I would cut out of your wedding plans or your wedding needs. Wedding favours, while it is a lovely gesture to say thank you and give back to everybody who's attending your wedding, they're not sort of required. Very few people remember them, and to be honest, often they're either a waste of money or left behind and forgotten about. If it is something that you would really like to do, my best suggestion to you is to either make it edible or drinkable. So that can either come in the form of sweets or chocolates or cakes or biscuits or whatever at the start, sort of on a place setting, or spending extra money in some area where it's sort of a delicious food would be really appreciated. The same with making it drinkable, sort of a toast drink or sort of a miniature or a special drink or a signature cocktail. They would be, I suppose, then you've got your guests actually using them. My big no-no when it comes to wedding favours is really don't ever DIY them. Unless, of course, your version of DIYing your favours is buying sweets in bulk and putting them into little organza bags. That's absolutely fine. But don't make it an arts and craft project to say thank you to your wedding guests. If you don't have the budget for it, simply cut it out. The next thing I want to say is that obviously, being a wedding planner, I'm always going to promote and suggest that at the very least you sit down and maybe just have a couple of consultations with a wedding planner to help you out. We really do know, or most of us really do know our stuff. We know what's expected, what to pay. We can really help you to start your plans, even if it's not in your budget to work with us for the entire wedding. But if for whatever reason you don't want to work with a wedding planner, can't afford it, or it's just not a fit for you, then listen to your other wedding suppliers. Allow them to guide you with recommendations and ideas. They are obviously doing this full time, hundreds of weddings a year or over the course of their existing careers. So they've met a great deal of wedding suppliers in all shapes and sizes throughout that time. So they probably have really good insight and suggestions and recommendations into people who will work well either with them directly, particularly when sort of it comes to partnering wedding suppliers, like finding a photographer and videographer who work well together and who know each other well can be a big plus. Finding a florist and a decor rental person who work well together and who can complement each other, again another great plus. A band who can recommend a DJ, or perhaps they have a DJ amongst their crew already. So think like that when you're researching and looking for suggestions for wedding suppliers if you're not able to work with a wedding planner. Always, when it comes to planning a wedding, have a contingency fund. The reality is, for most people, they've never planned a wedding before. They have no real concept as to what things cost, how much it's going to be, how much they'll need, all the hidden extras that may or may not come with whatever you're considering. I always suggest to my clients to have a contingency fund, even when they're working with me and even when we're helping them design a budget for their wedding, because the reality is I know what's available in the market and I know sort of what's reasonable, but that might not necessarily marry with my clients' expectations, particularly at the start when we're still getting to know each other. So by having a contingency fund, it means that if they do decide to spend more in an area, or if they realize that what they're actually looking for is 2 or 3 or 4 times the price of what they thought it was going to be, there's some money there already to help them out in that situation. And it doesn't mean that they've got to make another hard choice elsewhere to either reduce or readjust a budget in order to get what they're looking for. Another really important thing to do is to manage your expectations. Weddings are a serious business. They come with legalities and restrictions. Weddings are not like in the movies or in the TV shows. There's nobody calling action or cut if things don't go 100% to plan. Churches have restrictions. Priests have an important role to play in your ceremony and in the actual marrying part of you, as do celebrants. So really manage your expectations. If you have a picture-perfect movie wedding in mind, really research if your expectations and reality in whatever way you've chosen to get married are one and the same. So at least you're not hugely disappointed or frustrated during your wedding planning process. Another thing, and sort of in a similar vein with managing your expectations, Pinterest is a great resource of inspiration and aspiration for all parts of life, not least weddings. The one thing I will say to you is Pinterest aspirational weddings cost a lot of money. So while you're looking at these beautiful images and stunning locations and gorgeous brides and everything else that Pinterest shows us, realize that that is aspirational for a great deal of people. And for those, like myself, based in Ireland, we don't simply have the range of decorative products that you often see in Pinterest weddings, especially when it comes to linens, chair covers, and sort of unusual centerpieces. Things are definitely improving here in Ireland, but we still are rather limited in some of the products that are available to us easily. Obviously, if you have a big budget and you can afford to buy in the products that you're interested in, that's fantastic. But again, manage your expectations. Use Pinterest for inspiration, definitely, but realize that a lot of time, money, and effort goes into those types of weddings, and they're not always achievable for every couple. So really do kind of consider that when you're looking at your inspiration as well. The other thing that you need to be realistic about is time. Planning a wedding takes a huge amount of time, especially if you've never done it before. An average couple is going to spend about 256 hours planning their wedding. Possibly much more if you're doing something very unusual or in a different country, or So be realistic with your time and realize that sometimes planning a short-term wedding, as in a wedding maybe in 3 or 6 months' time, might not be realistic if you already have a very full schedule. The other person's time that you need to be realistic with are your wedding suppliers. Especially at the start when you're inquiring with them. We live in a world now where pretty much everything is instantaneous, and everybody expects an instantaneous response to a phone call, an email, a text message, whatever way the communication has come through. But realize that these people are working people, often just very small companies or indeed one-man bands, and they can't be everywhere and do everything all of the time. So you may send an email in the morning and expect to receive something by coffee break, but be realistic. These people are obviously out working, and it's a good, sometimes a good sign if they do take a short while to get back. Now, of course, I mean a short while. Allowing somebody a couple of days during the week, or sort of a couple of days over a weekend, is sufficient. And remember that during busy times it might take them slightly longer than normal to respond to you. And remember that even though you're inquiring with them for a wedding, that they may also have other busy times. So often for weddings, busy times run May through October. But for example, for a florist or a stationery company, Christmas is also another very busy time for them, as well as Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and Easter. So be sympathetic to their time. Another great point is to think outside the box. Really nice to try and do things a little bit differently, but also to be practical. Let's be realistic here that weddings do have a formula. People are used to that formula, and they have a certain set of expectations as well. So if you are thinking way outside the box and doing something very different for your wedding day, weekend, or week, inform your guests. Let them know in advance. Maybe it might have a different sort of, they might make different decisions on what to wear or what to bring with them or when to attend or when to arrive. So let your guests know, and also be practical about things as well. If you're planning an outdoor wedding, have an indoor backup. if you're not using traditional seating and maybe doing hay bales instead, what about people who are slightly older and might need the support in their backs? Maybe having a number of chairs would be wise as well. If you're having an outdoor wedding and it's in a grassy area, what about ladies in heels? Maybe advising them to bring flatwear or flip-flops with them would be a good suggestion, or having little sort of heel grips and shoe grips for them to put onto their heels as well would be a useful thing to do. So thinking outside the box is great, but be practical with it as well and think about all of the scenarios. And ultimately you want to have a beautiful day, of course, but to keep your guests happy as well. And finally, what I want to say, and this sort of, I suppose, segues away from my first point of growing a backbone, kind of, but not really, because what I'm going to say is treat everybody with respect. That's your guests, your family, your friends during the planning, and your wedding suppliers. So while I started this advice off saying growing a backbone, that does not mean become a bridezilla and become rude and become a very opinionated person. It means just ensure that you're getting the wedding that you want and can afford. By being respectful, what I mean is treat your wedding party with respect. Have reasonable expectations as to their involvement and what they can and can't do for you, and also what you expect them to do. Be respectful to your parents in their suggestions and ideas, even if you don't intend on taking them on. Be respectful to your wedding suppliers. Be respectful of their time, their experience, and what they are doing for you for the wedding day. In essence, treat the people who are going to be involved in your wedding like you would want to be treated. Because ultimately, your wedding is just one day. It's the beginning of your life together. And you want all of those people who are involved in the day to love and support you long after the day has come and gone as well. So that little crackling is Tilly is playing with some of her toys down beneath my feet here. So that's what you hear, the crackling there. But I hope you find these 10 realistic, honest pieces of advice, wedding planning advice, useful to you. If you are in the midst of planning a wedding, I'd love to hear some great advice that's been shared with you on how to sort of plan things, or if you've heard or are doing things any differently that might help other people who are watching this out. Thanks again for watching. Next week it'll be Tidy Thursday, and as we're in the midst of December, I'm going to be sharing with you some ideas to organise and prepare your home for Christmas in advance of the festive period. So please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. If it's your first time here, please do subscribe. I share weekly. Every week there's a different topic. You'll find more about that in my About section. And thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing with you soon.